Have you ever wondered what the deadliest animal in human history is? Take a second and think about it. Maybe you're imagining a great white shark slicing through the ocean, a lion stalking prey across the African savanna, or perhaps a massive crocodile waiting beneath the water's surface. Those animals certainly look deadly. But what if I told you that none of them even come close? In fact, the deadliest animal in human history is so small that you could crush it with a single slap. And despite its size, it may have killed more humans than all wars, murders, and natural disasters combined. The animal I'm talking about is the mosquito. And the numbers behind this tiny insect are almost impossible to comprehend. Let's find out why. At first glance, mosquitoes don't seem particularly threatening. They are tiny, fragile, annoying, sure, but deadly. Not really. Most people think of mosquitoes as little more than flying pests that leave itchy bumps on your skin. But here's where things get interesting. Mosquitoes aren't dangerous because of what they are. They are dangerous because of what they carry. You see, mosquitoes are nature's perfect disease delivery system. Every time an infected mosquito bites a human, it can transfer parasites or viruses directly into the bloodstream. It's like a flying hypodermic needle. And humanity has been fighting these tiny insects for thousands of years. Long before we understood germs. Long before microscopes. Long before modern medicine. Ancient civilizations were already suffering from mosquito-borne diseases. In fact, researchers studying Egyptian mummies have found evidence suggesting that malaria may have infected people living more than 3,000 years ago. Think about that. While workers were building pyramids. While pharaohs ruled over Egypt. Mosquitoes were already silently spreading disease. And they never stopped. But just how deadly are they? Here's something astonishing. Many scientists estimate that mosquitoes have been responsible for more human deaths than any other animal in history. Some estimates suggest that mosquito-borne diseases may have contributed to the deaths of tens of billions of people. Not millions. Billions. Let that sink in. Imagine every person alive in the world today. Now imagine that number multiplied several times over. That's the scale we're talking about. And one disease is responsible for most of that destruction. Malaria. Have you ever heard of malaria? Most people know the name. Few realize its impact. Malaria is caused by parasites that are transmitted through mosquito bites. Once inside the body, the parasites invade the liver and red blood cells. The result can be fever, chills, organ failure, and death. And here's something fascinating. For much of human history, people had absolutely no idea mosquitoes were responsible. Imagine living hundreds of years ago. You become sick. Your family becomes sick. Entire villages become sick. No one understands why. Many people blamed bad air. Others blamed evil spirits. Some believed the disease came from swamps themselves. In a way, they weren't entirely wrong. Swamps were filled with mosquitoes. They just didn't know it yet. But then science entered the picture. And one of the most important discoveries in medical history changed everything. In 1897, British physician Sir Ronald Ross made a breakthrough. After years of research, he demonstrated that mosquitoes transmit malaria parasites. Suddenly, one of humanity's greatest mysteries had an answer. The enemy wasn't bad air. It wasn't curses. It wasn't magic. It was a tiny insect buzzing around unnoticed. Can you imagine realizing that one of humanity's greatest killers had been hiding in plain sight all along? But here's where things get even stranger. Mosquitoes didn't just kill individuals. They changed the course of history itself. Have you ever wondered why some armies mysteriously collapsed despite being stronger than their enemies? The answer was often disease. Throughout history, mosquito-borne illnesses have crippled military campaigns. In some regions, soldiers were more likely to die from malaria than from enemy weapons. Entire invasions were weakened. Empires struggled to expand. Wars took unexpected turns. Not because of strategy. Not because of technology. But because of mosquitoes. Think about that for a second. A tiny insect may have influenced the rise and fall of civilizations. That's a level of power most predators could never dream of having. And yet the story gets even more fascinating. Scientists have discovered that mosquitoes didn't just affect history. They may have influenced human evolution itself. Here's something remarkable. Researchers studying genetics noticed that certain populations living in malaria-prone regions had unusually high rates of a genetic trait called sickle cell trait. At first, this seemed confusing. Why would a potentially harmful gene remain common? The answer was surprising. People carrying one copy of the trait often had increased protection against severe malaria. In other words, malaria was shaping human evolution. Generation after generation, natural selection was favoring traits that helped people survive mosquito-borne disease. Think about how incredible that is. Mosquitoes weren't just killing people. They were influencing the future genetic makeup of humanity. How many animals can claim they've altered the evolution of our species? But wait until you hear this. Scientists have also discovered that mosquitoes are surprisingly selective. Have you ever noticed that one person in a group gets covered in bites while everyone else seems fine? It turns out that isn't your imagination. Researchers found that mosquitoes are attracted to specific body odors, carbon dioxide levels, skin bacteria, body temperature, and even certain chemicals naturally produced by the human body. To a mosquito, some people are simply more appealing than others. Imagine walking into a restaurant. You scan the menu. You choose what looks best. Mosquitoes do something surprisingly similar. And scientists are still trying to understand exactly why. But here's perhaps the most terrifying fact of all. Despite centuries of scientific progress, mosquitoes remain one of the deadliest animals on Earth today. Every year, hundreds of millions of people contract mosquito-borne diseases. Millions become seriously ill. And hundreds of thousands still die. That's happening right now. Not in ancient history. Not in the Middle Ages. Today. Which raises an important question. Why haven't we eliminated them? After all, humans have landed on the moon. We've built supercomputers. We've mapped the human genome. Surely we can defeat a mosquito. Right? The problem is that mosquitoes are incredibly adaptable. There are more than 3,500 species. They reproduce quickly. They evolve rapidly. And they can develop resistance to pesticides. Every time humans gain an advantage, mosquitoes find ways to survive. It's one of the longest-running battles in human history. And it's still being fought. Researchers are now exploring extraordinary solutions. Some scientists are genetically modifying mosquitoes. Others are using bacteria to reduce disease transmission. Some projects even aim to suppress entire mosquito populations. The technologies sound almost like science fiction. But they may become essential in the future. Because the stakes couldn't be higher. Here's something fascinating to think about. If mosquitoes suddenly disappeared tomorrow, human history would look completely different. Entire wars might have unfolded differently. Millions of lives might have been saved. Population patterns would have changed. Even human evolution itself might have taken a different path. That's an astonishing amount of influence for a creature smaller than a paperclip. And that's what makes mosquitoes so unique. The deadliest animals aren't always the biggest. They aren't always the strongest. And they aren't always the most terrifying to look at. Sometimes the greatest threats are the ones we barely notice. So the next time you hear that familiar buzz near your ear late at night, remember this. You're not just hearing an annoying insect. You're hearing the descendant of a creature that shaped civilizations, influenced evolution, altered the outcome of wars, and may have killed more humans than any other animal in history. Which makes you wonder, if something so small can change the course of humanity, what other invisible forces are shaping our world right now without us even realizing it?